Hi there, this is Archive Moon with Star Siren Astrology coming to you literally from across the world since the last time we spoke. For those of you who know me, I've been living in the jungles of Central America for the last 8 years, and I've now recently moved with my love all the way to Australia. And it's a trip because when all my friends are excited for the summer solstice and they're ready to fruit and dance and blossom and strip those layers down, I'm actually like here putting the layers on and like going in deep for the winter solstice. And I'm just really excited to be back online. I couldn't vacay from these videos anymore because the month of July is fucking potent and it's packed. We've got 2 new moons just in the month of July. We have 2 eclipses on July 2nd and 3rd, 2nd in the Western Hemisphere and July 3rd in the Eastern Hemisphere. We are going to be celebrating a total solar eclipse. On July 16th and 17th, we'll experience a partial lunar eclipse, really closing, finishing those cycles out. So between July 2nd and 3rd and July 16th and 17th, we are in that eclipse portal where massive change happens, massive growth, massive releasings, literally whole alternate realities to choose from open up inside of these eclipse portals. These are like the moments to really heal our north and south node journey of that Cancer, Capricorn polarity axes that we've been working on all year long. Mercury will go retrograde right in the middle of that. Neptune is trining it, Uranus is sextiling it, and then at the very end of the month, we will finish Mercury retrograde and Mercury will oppose Pluto. And then we will have a new moon. So July is full and it's beautiful and it's powerful, but let's get prepared for it. I want to speak about how we can do that and how we can like open up our eyes inside of this ceremony that we're in. How do we get lucid and wake up inside of this big, beautiful, fucking terrifying dream called eclipse season? So the first thing I want to speak to, of course, is July 2nd and 3rd, the total solar eclipse happening. The North Node, the new moon, and the sun are all going to be in Cancer. So the North Node is the place that we've been moving towards. Like we're trying to evolve that part of us and we're moving our attention, our awareness, and we're like elevating those parts of ourselves collectively and individually. You know, that's what we've been working on with the North Node. And so the fact that the eclipse and the new moon and the sun are all coming together right there, it's bringing, you know, the sun is bringing our solar consciousness, our awareness, our core energy, our fuel that we have into Cancer. The new moon is bringing our subconscious nature, our karma, our deep-seated emotions, our deep subconscious world and desires into Cancer to meet that North Node. And so this is a time of really activating our subconscious and our ego to say, hey, we're bringing this part of our Cancer into healing and alignment. We're activating it all in this eclipse portal so that we can rewrite the ways that we are inside of relationships, the stories around our relationship to our emotional needs and security. Cancer rules attachment styles. It rules security and our emotional needs. So how we get those emotional needs met. It rules our core and our foundation of home. You know, that security is our home. It's our roots. It's our family. You know, and so Cancer, when that Cancerian part is activated, it's like, I want home. I want security. I want stability. I want connection. I want intimacy. I want relationships that give and receive, you know? And that sounds beautiful. But what happens when we don't have that? What happens when we have fears and all these wounds around that? What happens when our karma and our soul is asking to really look at all of the unmet needs, really look at all of the unseen desires, that we've been hiding from, or that we've been sabotaging or protecting ourselves, and actually get clear with like, what do you really want? And are your relationships giving you that? Are you even opening into a place where you can receive that? Are you held in your home and in your community, in your partnerships? Do you show up for them, and are they showing up for you? So this is all going to be like welling up like a fucking tidal wave, And Saturn and Pluto and the South Node are opposing that. They're opposing that need for security. They're opposing your emotional needs and your connection and your inner child and your inner feminine with Capricorn. All of the hard, planets, Saturn and Pluto. Not all of them, but yeah, Saturn and Pluto are like really strong, dynamic allies. They're really the strong influencers of like, oh yeah, are you in your power? Oh yeah, are you taking responsibility for your needs to be met? What do you do when they're not met? What do you do if somebody's withholding? What do you do if the systems in your life and in your government aren't supporting you? This is a place where we're going to be really taking a look at that inside of our individual lives, inside of our relationships, but also inside of our government, inside of the main collective mainframe that we have, that are the structures of our monetary systems and the structures of our school systems and the way that we support the women and children, the systems of inequality that have been structured in a way to keep people on their backs, to keep people in slavery, to keep women in victimization and disempowered. So with the South Node and Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, we have this strong call to look at the places where we misuse power, to look at the places where we withhold, to look at the places where we give our energy and we're not being sustained, or the places that we feed into something that isn't sustaining or nourishing these deeper parts of our femininity or our inner child or our creativity, that aren't sustaining that foundation of security and emotional intimacy. The way that I see that is, for one, it's coming up on the main stage of like government and Trump and all of these things happening to where they're actually taking away women's rights right now. There is a major outcry for the unborn lives to be heard, and yet there is also a major outcry for women to have a choice to birth who and what and where they want, and to have a stand for their body and their rights. And the list goes on and on of all of the really intense social and political and environmental issues that we have right now regarding our resources, regarding our power usage, regarding our ability to self-sustain. The way that I see it popping up in our personal lives is that when we have these big polarities like this, it's like somebody will come out with their emotional needs, identifying as the Cancer, identifying as, here I want my needs to be met, here I want you to meet me and feed me and nurture me and show up for me. And the other person is like, no, I need to choose me, or no, you're wrong, or no, your needs aren't valid, no, I need to withhold that, or no, I will only meet you if you do it like this, or like this, or like this. And so there's this weird thing happening with like the Capricorn parts of us being rigid and controlling and overworking and feeding into systems that might not actually sustain our work, or getting so overloaded with the bureaucracies of life, with the details of life, that we miss out on the like intimacy and the connection and the parts of us that truly want that inside of the Cancer, or we shut it down inside of the other. So one person is the Cancer and they're like, hey, I need to be, loved and nurtured and heard and seen and connected with, and the other person is like, no, And then that Cancerian part of us needs to deal and heal their patterns of victimization. The Cancer part also is the part of us that wants it so badly but shuts down. No, you don't actually care. No, you don't actually want to know what's wrong, so I'm not going to tell you. Or no, like, if you really loved me, you would have gotten me the chocolate, like, but I just didn't want to tell you because you should have remembered that time when I was 5. I told you that I wanted chocolate and not vanilla. And so, I use a silly example, but it's these little parts when the part of us that doesn't believe that we can be shown up for, doesn't believe that the other person wants to meet our needs, will either test them, or we'll push away, or we'll give until there's nothing left, and then we lash out and fight back. Why didn't you give back to me? There's all these sabotaging parts within the Cancer archetype and within the Capricorn. And so this is all a time of healing those dynamics inside of oneself, and ultimately being able to look at it inside of the collective. How do these little microcosms of attachment styles, of attaching and anxiously needing or blaming or accusing, being fearful that they're going to leave you so much that you cling, and so much that you push and fight, and then you push them away, and then they leave, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Or do you become the Capricorn that's withholding, and you're self-sustaining, and you don't let anyone meet your own needs, and then you become avoidant. You fight for your freedom all the time, and then you isolate. These are the insustainable patterns that keep us from actually receiving what we want, which is security and connection. And that's where the Capricorn and the Cancer meet and become whole, because Capricorn actually knows how to create that foundation of stability, of sustainability, to actually create the container to invite people to meet their needs, that actually does the work in order to create the foundations and the systems that are going to self-generate and also feed and nourish and sustain them. The Cancer knows how to open to intimacy, that knows how to give, but also knows how to receive, knows how to become secure in its attachment and create a secure attachment with others, and a secure home base of who they are and what they're connected to. So this is a deep time of really looking at attachment styles, with Venus being there right in Gemini, saying, hey, learn, read a book, listen to the podcast, talk to your friends, gather new information, network out, break out of any sort of constrictions and belief systems that would hold us in these negative, unfulfilling patterns. Excavate those deep desires. If things aren't sustaining, excavate why. Chances are the Cancer part of us wants us to be vulnerable, wants us to take a look at those wounds and find a way to heal them from the inside out, and then heal the parts of us that give our power away. The Capricorn healing is saying, actually take your power back inside of that, not by fighting, not by creating systems where you have the power over, but actually where you allow yourself to really do the work that it takes in this time to give yourself a true foundation of security, of home, of intimacy, and Saturn opposing that North Node is this really strong, challenger and initiator, saying, okay, are you allowing yourself to become victimized? Are you allowing yourself to seek or push away from the things that you want, instead of actually taking the responsibility that is required and doing the hard work that is required? And in doing that hard work, making sure that that is feeding the connection, it is feeding the inner feminine and the inner child. So this is really a time of dancing with those very sensitive parts of us. And hopefully as we start to really excavate it from within, we'll start to see these power imbalances and these places where we have victimized certain whole groups of people and they're not taking responsibility, or places where we're putting the responsibility on the victim, on the one that's being perpetrated, and taking it off of the perpetrators. So there's this victim-perpetrator dance inside of that Cancer Capricorn, and we have to find a way to like step outside of that cycle, but we can't just step outside of it in this way that releases responsibility and disassociates. We have to see how has it infiltrated and threaded the very tapestries of our being as a nation, as a species, and as an individual. And so a really powerful way to work with these eclipses is to see yourself inside of the polarity. So inside of the archetype of Cancer, see yourself as what is your relationship to your own emotional needs and security, and how you get those needs met, and how you react when they're not met, and how are you at being vulnerable and creating intimacy and connection. And also, what are your attachment styles like? Is it secure? Do you feel met? Do you have relationships that feel balanced and they're giving and receiving? If not, you can read an audiobook called Attached that's really good. There's lots of information out there on YouTube. But identifying your attachment style and then working on ways where you can heal those psychological patterns that are connected to your giving and receiving, that are connected to your relationship to home and security and intimacy. And then find yourself inside of Capricorn. Find yourself inside of like how you like to work, what systems you're feeding into and that you're creating in your life, and how are they nourishing you in return? How are you taking power and authority of your life? Or are you blaming? Are you finding yourself angry and pushing away, or feeling shut down, feeling taken advantage of, or feeling overwhelmed and overburdened by work? You know, these are all these cues. And then, once you can see yourself inside of both of them, start seeing how you're finding that inside of the other. Because chances are you're going to be one, and if you're Cancer, your partner is going to be Capricorn, and then you're going to flip. Or your boss is going to be Capricorn and you're going to be the Cancer, or you're going to be the Capricorn and your partner is Cancer, or whatever, and start seeing those dynamics play out. And then see if you can wake up inside of those moments and see, okay, how can I heal or integrate this part of the archetype that I'm embodying so that they have an opportunity to actually step up and start expressing and experiencing the higher octaves of their archetype. We can't control what they do, but we can see in these moments how we're participating in these patterns. But what I do want to leave you with here now is that focus on healing that Cancerian Capricorn dynamic of really looking at your emotional needs and security and your patterns of victimization or sabotage of your own needs or overgiving, however it looks for you. Your desires for home, and family. And then I want you to look at your work, your responsibilities, how you show up in that, and your personal power and external authority and power, Capricorn. How are these archetypes dancing inside of you? And making sure to remember that Neptune trine, Neptune in Pisces is still there, trining these aspects of us, reminding us that it's all about spiritual connection, spiritual fulfillment, transcendental experiences. Really feeling deeply interwoven and connected. That is the deepest longing of Pisces. And so why I think it's such a beautiful reminder in this time is when we're getting into the work, and we're excavating our relationship to power, and we're stepping more into responsibility and more into our authorship of our life. And we're also excavating those childhood wounds and those wounds of our feminine and all those places where we have unmet needs and sabotage those needs. We got to remember that it's actually all about that Piscean longing, that Piscean desire of deep and radical, transcendental kind of surrender and rapture and connection. And so not to get overwhelmed with those wounds of childhood, that we forget what it is all about. And we forget how to surrender and open and get out of those confines of too much work or too much fear, you know? And we remember that we need to give ourselves, we need to open our consciousness to expand into how we can truly feel connected beyond what people give us, beyond what our work gives us. And then we also have Uranus, sextiling. So Uranus is there in Taurus, sextiling this all to say, okay, how are you allowing your relationship to worth, your own self-worth and self-love to get radically liberated? How are you really liberating your relationship to your resources, your finances? Because Uranus and Taurus is like liberate our finances, liberate our resources. And again, that Capricorn is right there. Power, sustainability, and structure. If it is not in right relationship with our body, with our earth and the water and our food, our true resources, then it won't be a sustainable empire that we create. And so those things need to come into alignment with one another. We need to allow that Uranus to shake up those foundations and to recreate the systems of power and structure so that it can be in that right relationship, where our relationship with our body and our relationship with our resources in the land represents that intrinsic value and self-worth, and it represents that garden that we have been really called here to create, that is like our soul blossoming in its wholeness, instead of coming from woundedness, instead of coming from addiction, instead of coming from needing power. It's like we heal those places, and then we can create that garden. And that is where Uranus sends lightning through that Garden of Eden, so that that bridge that has been broken can be built again, between the connection of our soul and between the connection of our earth and our body and our resources. Okay, so with that, blessings on this new moon and this total solar eclipse to really allow this portal to bring you into more alignment into your relationships, your emotions, and also your work, and also the government, the duties, all the things. Bring your whole life into integrity and alignment so that your needs can flourish, that your needs can be sustainable and met in every aspect